The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Modernized English translation. Chapter 1. Laying Plans. The art of war is crucial to the state. It's a matter of life and death, a road to either safety or ruin. It absolutely cannot be neglected. The art of war is governed by 5 constant factors that must be considered when determining battlefield conditions. These are the moral law, heaven, earth, the commander, and method and discipline. The moral law causes the people to be in complete harmony with their ruler, so they'll follow him regardless of personal danger, unafraid of any threat. Heaven means night and day, cold and heat, and the changing seasons. Earth includes distances both great and small, danger and security, open ground and narrow passes, and matters of life and death. The commander represents the virtues of wisdom, integrity, benevolence, courage, and strictness. Method and discipline cover organizing the army into proper divisions, establishing ranks among officers, maintaining supply routes, and controlling military spending. Every general must be familiar with these 5 factors. Those who understand them will win, those who don't will fail. Therefore, when planning and determining military conditions, use these 7 comparisons as your basis. Which ruler has the moral law? Which general has more ability? Which side has the advantages of heaven and earth? Which side enforces discipline more rigorously? Which army is stronger? Which side has better trained officers and men? Which side is more consistent in rewarding and punishing? Through these 7 considerations, I can predict victory or defeat. The general who follows my counsel and acts on it will win. Keep him in command. The general who ignores my counsel will be defeated. Dismiss him. While following the benefit of my counsel, also take advantage of any helpful circumstances beyond the ordinary rules. Modify your plans according to circumstances. All warfare is based on deception. When you're able to attack, appear unable. When using your forces, appear inactive. When near, make the enemy think you're far away. When far away, make him think you're near. Offer bait to lure the enemy. Feign disorder, then crush him. If he's secure everywhere, be prepared for him. If he's superior in strength, avoid him. If your opponent has a quick temper, provoke him. Pretend to be weak so he becomes arrogant. If he's resting, give him no peace. If his forces are united, divide them. Attack where he's unprepared. Appear where you're not expected. These tactics leading to victory must not be revealed beforehand. The general who wins makes many calculations before battle. The general who loses makes few calculations beforehand. Many calculations lead to victory, few calculations to defeat, and no calculations guarantee failure. By paying attention to this, I can foresee who will win or lose. Chapter 2. Waging War. In military operations, when you field 1,000 fast chariots, an equal number of heavy chariots, and 100,000 armored soldiers, with enough provisions to transport them 1,000 li, the total expenditure, both at home and at the front, including hosting guests, small expenses like glue and paint, and costs for chariots and armor, will reach 1,000 ounces of silver per day. That's what it costs to raise an army of 100,000 men. When you engage in actual fighting, if victory takes too long, your soldiers' weapons will grow dull and their fighting spirit will fade. If you lay siege to a town, you'll exhaust your strength. Again, if the campaign drags on, the state's resources won't be able to sustain the strain. When your weapons are dulled, your fighting spirit dampened, your strength exhausted, and your treasury spent, other leaders will take advantage of your weakness. Then no one, however wise, will be able to prevent the disaster that follows. So while we've seen examples of reckless haste in war, there's never been a case where long delays brought success. No country has ever benefited from prolonged warfare. Only someone who thoroughly understands the harm war causes can thoroughly understand how to wage it effectively. The skilled commander doesn't need to conscript troops twice and doesn't load supply wagons more than twice. Bring essential military equipment from home, but take food supplies from the enemy. This way the army will have enough provisions. When a state's treasury is poor, it has to maintain armies through contributions from distant regions. Maintaining an army at a distance impoverishes the people. On the other hand, when an army is nearby, prices rise, and high prices drain the people's wealth. When their wealth is drained, the peasants will be hit with heavy taxes. With this loss of wealth and exhaustion of strength, households throughout the country will be stripped bare, and 3/10 of the people's income will disappear. Meanwhile, government spending on broken chariots, worn-out horses, armor and helmets, bows and arrows, spears and shields, protective gear, draft oxen and heavy wagons will consume 4/10 of the state's total revenue. That's why a wise general makes a point of foraging on the enemy. 1 cartload of the enemy's provisions equals 20 of your own. Likewise, a single unit of enemy fodder equals 20 from your own stores. To motivate soldiers to kill the enemy, stir them to anger. To make defeating the enemy worthwhile, offer them rewards. In chariot warfare, when 10 or more enemy chariots have been captured, reward those who took the first one. Replace the enemy's flags with your own, and mix the captured chariots in with yours. Treat captured soldiers well and keep them. This is called using the conquered enemy to strengthen your own forces. In war, then, make victory your great objective, not lengthy campaigns. This makes clear that the commander of armies controls the people's fate. He's the one who determines whether the nation will be at peace or in peril. Chapter 3. Attack by Stratagem. In practical warfare, the best approach is to take the enemy's country whole and intact. Shattering and destroying it is not as good. Similarly, it's better to capture an army, a regiment, a detachment, or a company intact than to destroy them. Therefore, to fight and win every single battle is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence is breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. The highest form of generalship is disrupting the enemy's plans. The next best is preventing the enemy's forces from joining together. Next in order is attacking the enemy's army in the field. The worst strategy of all is besieging walled cities. The rule is not to besiege cities if it can possibly be avoided. Preparing siege equipment and building assault ramps takes 3 whole months, and the final assault takes 3 months more. If the general can't control his frustration and launches his men at the walls like swarming ants, 1/3 of his soldiers will die while the city still stands. This is the disastrous cost of sieges. Therefore, the skilled leader defeats the enemy's troops without fighting. He captures their cities without laying siege to them. He overthrows their kingdom without lengthy field operations. With his forces intact, he'll compete for mastery of the empire. Without losing a single soldier, his triumph will be complete. This is the method of attacking by stratagem. In war, if our forces are 10 times the enemy's, surround them. If 5 times, attack them. If double, divide your army in 2. If equally matched, you can engage in battle. If slightly inferior in numbers, you can avoid the enemy. If completely outmatched in every way, you can flee from them. A small force that fights stubbornly will eventually be captured by a larger force. The general is the bulwark of the state. If the bulwark is complete at all points, the state will be strong. If the bulwark has defects, the state will be weak. There are 3 ways a ruler can bring disaster upon his army. By ordering the army to advance or retreat when it cannot obey. This is called hobbling the army. By trying to govern an army the same way he administers a kingdom, while being ignorant of the conditions that exist in an army. This causes confusion in the soldiers' minds. By employing officers without discrimination, through ignorance of the military principle of adapting to circumstances. This shakes the soldier's confidence. When the army is confused and distrustful, trouble from rival princes is sure to follow. This is simply bringing chaos into the army and throwing away victory. There are 5 essentials for victory. He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight. He will win who knows how to handle both superior and inferior forces. He will win whose army is united in purpose throughout all its ranks. He will win who prepares himself and waits to take the enemy unprepared. He will win who has military capacity and is not interfered with by the sovereign. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory you'll also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you'll lose every battle. Chapter 4. Tactical Dispositions. The skilled warriors of ancient times first made themselves impossible to defeat, and then waited for an opportunity to defeat the enemy. Protecting ourselves against defeat is within our control, but the opportunity to defeat the enemy is something the enemy must provide. Therefore, the skilled warrior can secure himself against defeat, but cannot guarantee victory over the enemy. Hence the saying, one may know how to win without being able to achieve it. Defense against defeat requires defensive tactics. The ability to defeat the enemy requires taking the offensive. Taking a defensive position indicates insufficient strength. Attacking indicates an abundance of strength. The general skilled in defense conceals himself in the deepest secrecy. The general skilled in attack strikes from the highest heights like a thunderbolt. In this way, we have both the ability to protect ourselves and the ability to achieve complete victory. Recognizing victory only when it is obvious to everyone is not the highest level of excellence. Neither is it the highest level of excellence if you fight and conquer and everyone says, "Well done." Lifting a strand of fine hair is not a sign of great strength. Seeing the sun and moon is not a sign of sharp vision. Hearing thunder is not a sign of acute hearing. What the ancients called a skilled warrior is one who not only wins, but wins with ease. Therefore, his victories bring him neither a reputation for wisdom nor credit for courage. He wins his battles by making no mistakes. Making no mistakes establishes the certainty of victory because it means conquering an enemy who is already defeated. The skilled warrior puts himself in a position where defeat is impossible and never misses the opportunity to defeat the enemy. In war, the victorious strategist seeks battle only after ensuring victory, while the one destined to lose fights first and then hopes for victory. The masterful leader cultivates moral strength and strictly follows discipline and method. Thus he controls success. In military strategy, there are 5 factors. First, measurement. Second, estimation. Third, calculation. Fourth, comparison. Fifth, victory. Measurement comes from understanding the terrain. Estimation comes from measurement. Calculation comes from estimation. Comparison comes from calculation, and victory comes from comparison. A victorious army compared to a defeated one is like a heavy weight balanced against a single grain. The momentum of a conquering force is like water bursting through a dam into a chasm 1,000 feet deep. This is the essence of tactical dispositions. Force is like water bursting through a dam into a chasm 1,000 feet deep. This is the essence of tactical dispositions. Chapter 5. Energy. Controlling a large force follows the same principle as controlling a small one. It is simply a matter of organization and structure. Fighting with a large army is no different from fighting with a small one. It is simply a matter of clear communication through signs and signals. To ensure that your entire force can withstand the enemy's attack and remain unshaken, this is achieved through the use of direct and indirect tactics. to make your army's impact like a millstone crushing an egg. This is achieved through understanding weak points and strong points. In all combat, the direct approach may be used to engage the enemy, but indirect methods are needed to secure victory. Indirect tactics, skillfully applied, are as inexhaustible as heaven and earth, as endless as the flow of rivers and streams. Like the sun and moon, they set only to rise again. Like the four seasons, they pass away only to return once more. There are no more than 5 musical notes, yet their combinations produce more melodies than can ever be heard. There are no more than 5 primary colors: blue, yellow, red, white, and black, yet in combination they produce more shades than can ever be seen. There are no more than 5 basic tastes: sour, spicy, salty, sweet, and bitter, yet their combinations yield more flavors than can ever be tasted. In battle, there are only 2 methods of attack, the direct and the indirect, yet these two in combination give rise to an endless variety of tactics. The direct and the indirect lead to each other in turn. It is like moving in a circle, you never reach an end. Who can exhaust the possibilities of their combination? The charge of troops is like a rushing torrent that rolls boulders in its path. The quality of decisive timing is like the swift strike of a falcon, perfectly timed to hit and destroy its prey. Therefore, the skilled warrior is overwhelming in his attack and precise in his timing. Energy may be compared to the drawing of a crossbow, decisive timing to the release of the trigger. In the chaos of battle, there may appear to be disorder when there is none. Amid seeming confusion, your forces may look disorganized, yet remain unbeatable. Simulated disorder requires perfect discipline. Simulated fear requires true courage. Simulated weakness requires real strength. Hiding order beneath apparent chaos is a matter of organization. Concealing courage under a display of timidity requires stored energy. Masking strength with apparent weakness is achieved through tactical positioning. One who excels at keeping the enemy moving creates deceptive appearances that the enemy will react to. He offers something the enemy will grab at. By dangling bait, he keeps the enemy on the move. Then with a force of elite troops, he lies in wait. The skilled commander focuses on combined momentum and does not demand too much from individuals. He selects the right people and leverages collective force. When he harnesses combined energy, his soldiers become like rolling logs or stones. It is the nature of logs and stones to stay still on flat ground, but to roll on a slope, to stop if square-edged, but to keep rolling if round. Thus the energy of well-led troops is like the momentum of a round boulder rolled down a mountain thousands of feet high. This is the essence of energy. Chapter 6. Weak Points and Strong. Whoever arrives at the battlefield first and waits for the enemy will be fresh for the fight. Whoever arrives second and must rush into battle will be exhausted. Therefore, the skilled commander imposes his will on the enemy, but does not allow the enemy's will to be imposed on him. By offering advantages, he can make the enemy approach willingly. By threatening damage, he can make it impossible for the enemy to draw near. If the enemy is resting, harass him. If well supplied, starve him out. If settled in camp, force him to move. Appear at points the enemy must rush to defend. March swiftly to places where you are not expected. An army can march great distances without hardship if it travels through territory where the enemy is absent. You can be certain of success in your attacks if you only attack places that are undefended. You can ensure the safety of your defense if you only hold positions that cannot be attacked. The general skilled in attack leaves the enemy not knowing what to defend. The general skilled in defense leaves the enemy not knowing what to attack. The divine art of subtlety and secrecy. Through it we become invisible, through it inaudible, and so we hold the enemy's fate in our hands. You may advance and be completely unstoppable if you strike at the enemy's weak points. You may retreat and be safe from pursuit if your movements are faster than the enemy's. If we wish to fight, the enemy can be forced into battle even if he hides behind high walls and deep trenches. We simply attack somewhere else that he must defend. If we do not wish to fight, we can avoid engagement even without fortifications. We simply do something so unexpected that the enemy is confused. By discovering the enemy's positions while remaining invisible ourselves, we can concentrate our forces while the enemy must scatter his. We can form a single united body while the enemy must split into fragments. Thus, we will be many against his few. If we can attack a smaller force with a larger one, our opponents will be in serious trouble. The place where we intend to fight must not be revealed, for then the enemy must prepare to defend against attacks from many directions, and the forces we face at any given point will be smaller. If the enemy strengthens his front, he weakens his rear. If he strengthens his rear, he weakens his front. If he strengthens his left, he weakens his right. If he strengthens his right, he weakens his left. If he tries to be strong everywhere, he will be weak everywhere. Numerical weakness comes from having to prepare against attacks. Numerical strength comes from forcing the enemy to make those preparations. Knowing where and when the battle will occur, we can concentrate forces from great distances to fight. But if we know neither the place nor time of battle, then the left cannot support the right cannot support the left, the front cannot help the rear, and the rear cannot help the front. This is even worse when parts of the army are far apart. Though the enemy may outnumber us, that will not help him win. Victory can still be achieved. Even if the enemy is stronger, we can prevent him from fighting effectively. Plan carefully to discover his intentions and their likelihood of success. Provoke him to learn his patterns of action and inaction. Force him to reveal himself to find his vulnerable spots. Carefully compare the enemy's forces with your own to know where you are strong and where you are weak. In tactical planning, the highest achievement is concealment. Conceal your plans, and you will be safe from the cleverest spies and the wisest strategists. How to create victory from the enemy's own tactics. This is what most people cannot understand. Everyone can see the tactics by which I conquer, but no one can see the strategy from which victory is born. Do not repeat the tactics that won you one victory. Instead, let your methods adapt to the endless variety of circumstances. Military tactics are like water. Water naturally flows away from high ground and rushes downward. In war, the principle is to avoid strength and strike at weakness. Water shapes its course according to the terrain. The soldier achieves victory according to the enemy he faces. Just as water has no constant shape, in warfare there are no constant conditions. One who can adapt his tactics to the enemy and thereby win may be called a genius of war. The five elements are not always equally powerful. The four seasons give way to each other in turn. Days are sometimes short and sometimes long. The moon waxes and wanes. So too in war, nothing remains constant. Chapter 7. Maneuvering. In war, the general receives his orders from the ruler. Having assembled an army and gathered his forces, he must unify and harmonize the different elements before making camp. After that comes tactical maneuvering, which is the most difficult part of warfare. The challenge of maneuvering lies in turning the indirect into the direct and turning disadvantage into advantage. Thus, to take a long and roundabout route while luring the enemy away, and though starting after him, to arrive before him. This shows mastery of the indirect approach. Maneuvering with a disciplined army is advantageous. With an undisciplined mob, it is dangerous. If you march your fully equipped army to seize an advantage, you may arrive too late. But if you send a light, fast force, you must leave behind your equipment and supplies. If you order your men to march day and night without rest, covering twice the normal distance to seize an advantage, the commanders of all your divisions may be captured. The strongest will be in front, the exhausted will fall behind, and only 1/10 of your army will arrive. If you march at half that pace to outmaneuver the enemy, you will lose the commander of your lead division, and only half your force will arrive. If you march at 1/3 of that pace, 2/3 of your army will arrive. An army without its supply train is lost. Without provisions, it is lost. Without supply bases, it is lost. We cannot form alliances until we understand our neighbor's intentions. We cannot lead an army on the march unless we know the terrain, its mountains and forests, its hazards and obstacles, its marshes and swamps. We cannot use natural advantages unless we employ local guides. In war, practice deception, and you will succeed. Move only when there is real advantage to be gained. Whether to concentrate or divide your forces must be decided by circumstances. Let your speed be like the wind, your formation dense like a forest. In raiding, be like fire. In holding position, be immovable like a mountain. Let your plans be as dark as night, and when you strike, fall like a thunderbolt. When you plunder territory, divide the spoils among your men. When you capture new land, distribute the benefits to your soldiers. Think carefully before you make a move. He will conquer who has mastered the indirect approach. Such is the art of maneuvering. The ancient book of army management says, on the battlefield, the spoken word does not carry far enough, hence the use of drums and gongs. Normal objects cannot be seen clearly enough, hence the use of banners and flags. Drums, gongs, banners, and flags are ways to focus the attention of the entire army on a single point. When the army acts as one unified body, the brave cannot advance alone, nor can the cowardly retreat alone. This is how to manage large forces. In night fighting, use signal fires and drums extensively. In daytime fighting, use flags and banners. These are ways to direct your army's eyes and ears. An entire army can be robbed of its fighting spirit. A commander can be robbed of his composure. A soldier's spirit is sharpest in the morning. By midday it begins to fade. By evening, his only thought is returning to camp. The skilled general avoids the enemy when his spirit is keen, and attacks when it is sluggish, and his thoughts turn to home. This is managing morale. To remain disciplined and calm while waiting for disorder to appear in the enemy, this is self-control. To be near the goal while the enemy is far away, to wait at ease while the enemy struggles, to be well fed while the enemy starves, this is managing strength. To avoid engaging an enemy whose banners are in perfect order, to avoid attacking an army that is calm and confident, this is managing circumstances. It is a military principle not to advance uphill against an enemy, nor to oppose him when he comes downhill. Do not pursue an enemy who pretends to flee. Do not attack soldiers whose fighting spirit is high. Do not take bait offered by the enemy. Do not block an army that is heading home. When you surround an enemy, leave an escape route. Do not press a desperate enemy too hard. Such is the art of warfare. Chapter 8. Variation of tactics. In war, the general receives his orders from the ruler, assembles his army, and concentrates his forces. When in difficult terrain, do not make camp. Where major roads intersect, form alliances with neighboring states. Do not linger in isolated positions. In enclosed situations, use strategy. In desperate situations, fight. There are roads that should not be taken, armies that should not be attacked, cities that should not be besieged, positions that should not be contested, and orders from the ruler that should not be obeyed. The general who fully understands the advantages of tactical flexibility knows how to command his troops. The general who does not understand this may know the terrain well, but will be unable to use that knowledge effectively. The student of war who lacks skill in adapting his plans, even if he knows the standard advantages, will fail to get the best from his men. Therefore, the wise leader's plans, always blend considerations of advantage and disadvantage together. By considering potential gains with caution, we can accomplish the essential parts of our plans. By remaining ready to seize advantages even in the midst of difficulties, we can escape from misfortune. Subdue hostile leaders by causing them harm, create problems for them, keep them constantly occupied, offer tempting lures to make them rush to any given point. The art of war teaches us not to rely on the enemy's failure to attack, but on our own readiness to receive him, not on the chance that he will not come, but on our position being unassailable. There are 5 dangerous faults that can affect a general. First, recklessness, which leads to destruction. Second, cowardice, which leads to capture. Third, a quick temper, which can be exploited through provocation. Fourth, excessive pride, which can be manipulated through insults. Fifth, overconcern for his men, which leads to worry and hesitation. These 5 faults are disastrous in a general and ruinous in warfare. When an army is destroyed and its leader killed, the cause will surely be found among these 5 dangerous faults. They deserve careful study. Chapter 9. The Army on the March. We now consider how to position an army and read signs of the enemy. When crossing mountains, stay near valleys. Camp on high ground facing the sun. Do not fight uphill. This covers mountain warfare. After crossing a river, move far away from it. When an enemy force crosses a river toward you, do not meet them in midstream. Let half their army cross, then attack. If you want to fight, do not meet the enemy near a river he must cross. Position your boats upstream of the enemy and facing the sun. Do not advance against the current. This covers river warfare. When crossing salt marshes, move through them quickly without delay. If you must fight in a salt marsh, stay near water and grass with your back to trees. This covers marsh warfare. In flat, dry country, take an accessible position with high ground to your right and rear, so danger is in front and safety behind. This covers flat terrain. These 4 types of terrain, mountains, rivers, marshes, and plains, are the foundations of military knowledge. All armies prefer high ground to low, and sunny positions to shaded ones. If you care for your men and camp on solid ground, your army will be free from disease, and this leads to victory. When you reach hills or riverbanks, occupy the sunny side with the slope to your right rear. This benefits your soldiers and uses the terrain's natural advantages. When heavy rains upstream cause a river to flood and foam, wait until it subsides before crossing. Avoid dangerous terrain. Steep cliffs with rushing water between them, deep hollows, confined spaces, dense thickets, swamps, and narrow gorges. Leave such places quickly and do not approach them. Keep away from such terrain yourself, but maneuver the enemy toward it. Face such terrain, but make the enemy have it at his back. If there are hills, ponds with tall grass, reed-filled hollows, or dense woods near your camp, search them carefully. These are places where ambushes and spies hide. When the enemy is nearby but stays quiet, he is relying on a strong position. When he stays distant but provokes battle, he wants you to advance. If his camp is in an easily accessible location, it is bait. Movement in the trees shows the enemy is advancing. Many screens placed in thick grass mean he wants to create suspicion. Birds suddenly rising indicate an ambush. Startled animals mean a surprise attack is coming. Dust rising high and narrow indicates chariots advancing. Dust low and spread wide indicates infantry. Dust in scattered patches indicates troops gathering firewood. Small clouds of dust moving about indicate the army is making camp. Humble words combined with increased preparations mean the enemy is about to advance. Aggressive language with apparent forward movement means he will retreat. When light chariots move out to the flanks, the enemy is forming for battle. Peace proposals without a binding agreement indicate a plot. When troops rush about and fall into formation, the critical moment has arrived. When some advance while others retreat, it is a lure. When soldiers lean on their spears, they are hungry. When those sent to fetch water drink first themselves, the army is thirsty. When the enemy sees an advantage but does not take it, his soldiers are exhausted. When birds gather on a spot, it is empty. Noise at night indicates nervousness. Disturbance in camp means the general's authority is weak. When banners move about randomly, there is disorder. When officers are irritable, the men are weary. When the army feeds grain to its horses and slaughters its cattle for food, and when soldiers do not hang up their cooking pots or return to their tents, they are prepared to fight to the death. Soldiers whispering in small groups indicates discontent in the ranks. Too many rewards means the enemy is desperate. Too many punishments means he is in serious trouble. To be aggressive at first, but later frightened by the enemy's numbers, shows a lack of intelligence. When envoys come with flattering words, the enemy wants a truce. When enemy troops march up angrily, but neither engage nor withdraw, watch the situation carefully. If your numbers merely equal the enemy's, that is enough. It only means you cannot make a direct attack. Concentrate your strength, watch the enemy closely, and gather reinforcements. He who underestimates his opponent without thinking ahead will surely be captured. If soldiers are punished before they feel loyalty to you, they will not obey, and disobedient soldiers are useless. If soldiers feel loyal but punishments are not enforced, they are also useless. Therefore, treat soldiers with kindness, but control them with strict discipline. This is the path to victory. When training commands are consistently enforced, the army will be well disciplined. When commands are not enforced, discipline will be poor. When a general has confidence in his men and his orders are always obeyed, the benefit is mutual. Chapter 10. Terrain. We may identify 6 types of terrain: accessible ground, entangling ground, stalemate ground, narrow passes, steep heights, and positions far from the enemy. Ground that both sides can freely cross is called accessible. On accessible ground, occupy the high, sunny positions first and secure your supply lines. Then you can fight with advantage. Ground you can leave, but is hard to return to, is called entangling. On entangling ground, if the enemy is unprepared, attack and defeat him. But if the enemy is prepared and you fail to defeat him, you cannot return, and disaster will follow. Ground where neither side gains by moving first is called stalemate ground. On stalemate ground, even if the enemy offers tempting bait, do not advance. Instead, retreat to draw the enemy out. Then, when part of his force has moved forward, attack with advantage. On narrow passes, if you arrive first, garrison them strongly and wait for the enemy. If the enemy occupies a pass before you, do not attack if it is fully defended, only if it is weakly held. On steep heights, if you arrive first, occupy the high, sunny ground and wait for the enemy. If the enemy occupies the heights first, do not follow him up. Retreat and try to lure him down. When you are far from the enemy and both armies are equal in strength, it is hard to provoke battle, and fighting will be to your disadvantage. These are the 6 principles of terrain. The general in command must study them carefully. There are 6 disasters that can befall an army, not from natural causes, but from the general's mistakes: flight, insubordination, collapse, ruin, disorganization, and rout. When a force attacks 10 times its size, the result is flight. When common soldiers are strong but officers are weak, the result is insubordination. When officers are strong but soldiers are weak, the result is collapse. When senior officers are angry and defiant, engaging the enemy on their own out of resentment before the commander knows whether battle is wise, the result is ruin. When the general is weak and lacks authority, when orders are unclear, when officers and soldiers have no fixed duties, and when formations are sloppy, the result is disorganization. When a general cannot judge the enemy's strength, sends a small force against a large one, attacks with weak troops against strong ones, and fails to place his best soldiers in front, the result is rout. These six are paths to defeat. The general in command must study them carefully. Terrain is a soldier's greatest ally. The ability to assess the enemy, control the outcome, and calculate difficulties, dangers, and distances is the mark of a superior general. He who knows these things and applies them in battle will win. He who does not know them or fails to apply them will lose. If fighting will surely bring victory, you must fight, even if the ruler forbids it. If fighting will not bring victory, you must not fight, even if the ruler commands it. The general who advances without seeking glory and retreats without fearing disgrace, whose only purpose is to protect his people and serve his ruler, is a treasure to the nation. Treat your soldiers like your own children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Treat them like your beloved sons, and they will stand by you to the death. But if you are kind yet cannot command, caring yet cannot enforce orders, and cannot restore order when there is chaos, your soldiers will be like spoiled children, useless. If we know our own troops are ready to attack, but do not know the enemy is vulnerable, we are only halfway to victory. If we know the enemy is vulnerable, but do not know our own troops are ready, we are only halfway to victory. If we know the enemy is vulnerable and our troops are ready, but do not know the terrain makes battle impractical, we are still only halfway to victory. The experienced soldier, once in motion, is never confused. Once he breaks camp, he is never at a loss. Hence the saying, know the enemy and know yourself, and your victory will not be in doubt. Know heaven and know earth, and your victory will be complete. Chapter 11. The 9 situations. The art of war recognizes 9 types of ground: dispersive ground, facile ground, contentious ground, open ground, intersecting ground, serious ground, difficult ground, hemmed-in ground, and desperate ground. When a leader fights in his own territory, it is dispersive ground. When he has entered hostile territory, but not deeply, it is facile ground. Ground that offers great advantage to whoever holds it is contentious ground. Ground where both sides can move freely is open ground. Ground that borders 3 states, so that whoever holds it first gains the support of neighboring powers, is intersecting ground. When an army has penetrated deep into hostile country, leaving many fortified cities behind, it is serious ground. Mountain forests, rugged terrain, marshes, and wetlands, any ground that is hard to cross, is difficult ground. Ground reached through narrow passages, from which retreat requires winding paths, where a small enemy force can defeat a large one, is hemmed in ground. Ground where survival requires immediate battle is desperate ground. On dispersive ground, do not fight. On facile ground, do not halt. On contentious ground, do not attack. On open ground, do not try to block the enemy. On intersecting ground, form alliances. On serious ground, gather supplies. On difficult ground, keep moving. On hemmed-in ground, use strategy. On desperate ground, fight. Skilled commanders of the past knew how to separate the enemy's front from his rear, prevent cooperation between large and small units, stop good troops from rescuing bad ones, and keep officers from rallying their men. When the enemy's forces scattered, they prevented regrouping. Even when forces united, they kept them in disorder. They advanced when it was advantageous. Otherwise, they held their position. If asked how to face a large, well-organized enemy force about to attack, I would say, see something the enemy values, and he will do what you want. Speed is the essence of war. Exploit the enemy's unreadiness, travel by unexpected routes, and strike where he is not prepared. The principle for an invading force is this: The deeper you penetrate enemy territory, the stronger your army's cohesion becomes, and the defenders cannot prevail against you. Raid fertile areas to supply your army with food. Attend carefully to your soldiers' well-being and do not overwork them. Build up energy and conserve strength. Keep your army constantly moving and devise plans the enemy cannot fathom. Put your soldiers in positions where there is no escape, and they will choose death over flight. When facing death, what can they not achieve? Both officers and men will give their utmost. Soldiers in desperate situations lose their fear. When there is no refuge, they stand firm. Deep in hostile territory, they hold together. With no alternative, they fight. Without needing orders, they stay alert. Without being asked, they fulfill your wishes. Without restrictions, they remain loyal. Without commands, they can be trusted. Ban superstitions and eliminate doubts. Then your soldiers will face any danger until death itself. If our soldiers do not hoard wealth, it is not because they dislike riches. If they do not cling to life, it is not because they dislike living long. On the day battle is ordered, tears may roll down the cheeks of soldiers sitting and those lying down alike. But once committed to battle, they will show the courage of legendary heroes. A skilled tactician is like a snake found in the mountains. Strike its head and its tail attacks. Strike its tail and its head attacks. Strike its middle and both head and tail attack. Can an army be made to act like this snake? Yes. The people of Wu and Yue are enemies, yet if they cross a river in the same boat and are caught in a storm, they will help each other like left and right hands. Therefore, tethering horses and burying chariot wheels is not enough to prevent flight. The principle of managing an army is to set one standard of courage that all must reach. How to get the best from both strong and weak troops is a matter of using terrain properly. Thus, a skilled general leads his army as if leading a single person by the hand. A general must be calm and secretive, fair and disciplined. He must keep his officers and men ignorant through false reports and deception. By changing his plans and shifting his camp, he keeps the enemy from predicting his moves. At the critical moment, the leader acts like someone who climbs a height and kicks away the ladder. He leads his men deep into enemy territory before revealing his intentions. He burns his boats and smashes his cooking pots. Like a shepherd driving sheep, he drives his men here and there, and no one knows where he is going. Assembling his forces and placing them in danger, this is the general's responsibility. The different tactics suited to the 9 types of ground, the advantages of attack or defense, and the basic principles of human nature, these must be carefully studied. When invading hostile territory, deeper penetration brings unity. Shallow penetration causes dispersion. When you leave your country and cross neighboring territory, you are on critical ground. When roads lead in all directions, it is intersecting ground. Deep penetration means serious ground. Shallow penetration means facile ground. When enemy strongholds are behind you and narrow passes ahead, it is hemmed in ground. When there is no escape, it is desperate ground. On dispersive ground, I would unify my army's purpose. On facile ground, I would keep units closely connected. On contentious ground, I would rush my rear forward. On open ground, I would watch my defenses carefully. On intersecting ground, I would strengthen alliances. On serious ground, I would maintain a steady flow of supplies. On difficult ground, I would keep advancing. On hemmed-in ground, I would block the routes of retreat. On desperate ground, I would make clear to my soldiers that survival is impossible without fighting. It is the nature of soldiers to resist when surrounded, to fight hard when there is no choice, and to obey when in danger. We cannot ally with neighboring rulers until we know their intentions. We cannot lead an army unless we know the terrain, its mountains and forests, hazards and swamps. We cannot gain advantage from the land without local guides. Ignorance of any of these principles is unworthy of a true leader. When a capable leader attacks a powerful state, he prevents enemy forces from concentrating. He intimidates opponents, and their allies dare not join against him. Therefore, he does not compete for alliances or build up the power of other states. He pursues his own plans, keeping enemies in awe. Thus he captures cities and overthrows kingdoms. Give rewards without fixed rules. Issue orders without prior announcements. Handle an entire army as you would a single person. Direct your soldiers to their tasks without revealing your plans. Show them benefits, but do not tell them of dangers. Put your army in deadly peril, and it will survive. Plunge it into desperate straits, and it will escape. Only when an army is in danger can it fight for victory. Success in war comes from carefully adapting to the enemy's purpose. By persistently shadowing the enemy, we can eventually kill his commander. This is called achieving victory through cunning. On the day you take command, close the borders, destroy the passes, and stop all messengers. Be firm in your counsels to control the situation. If the enemy leaves an opening, rush in. Seize what the enemy values most, and time your movements precisely. Follow established methods while adapting to the enemy until you can fight a decisive battle. At first, be shy as a maiden until the enemy offers an opening. Then move as swiftly as a running hare, and the enemy will be unable to resist. Chapter 12. The attack by fire. There are 5 ways to attack with fire. The first is to burn soldiers in their camp. The second is to burn supplies. The third is to burn baggage trains. The fourth is to burn arsenals and storehouses. The fifth is to hurl fire among the enemy. To carry out a fire attack, conditions must be favorable. Materials for starting fires should always be kept ready. There is a proper season for fire attacks and specific days for starting them. The proper season is when the weather is very dry. The specific days are when the wind rises. In attacking with fire, be prepared for 5 possible developments. First, when fire breaks out inside the enemy's camp, respond immediately with an attack from outside. Second, if fire breaks out, but the enemy remains calm, wait and do not attack. Third, when the flames reach their peak, attack if possible. If not, hold your position. Fourth, if you can launch a fire attack from outside, do not wait for one to start inside. Attack at the right moment. Fifth, when you start a fire, stay upwind of it. Do not attack from downwind. A wind that rises during the day lasts long. A wind that rises at night soon dies down. Every army must understand the 5 fire developments, calculate weather patterns, and watch for the right days. Those who use fire to assist their attacks show intelligence. Those who use water to assist their attacks gain strength. Water can cut off an enemy, but it cannot destroy his supplies. To win battles and achieve your objectives without seizing opportunities shows a lack of initiative, resulting in wasted time and stagnation. Hence the saying, the wise ruler plans ahead, the good general develops his resources. Do not move unless you see an advantage. Do not deploy your troops unless there is something to gain. Do not fight unless the situation is critical. No ruler should send troops to war merely to satisfy his anger. No general should fight a battle simply out of resentment. If it is to your advantage, advance. If not, stay where you are. Anger can turn to joy. Resentment can become contentment. But a kingdom once destroyed cannot be restored, and the dead cannot be brought back to life. Therefore, the wise ruler is careful, and the good general is cautious. This is how to keep a country at peace and an army intact. Chapter 13. The use of spies. Raising an army of 100,000 men and marching them great distances drains the people and exhausts the state's resources. The daily cost is enormous. There will be unrest at home and abroad, and men will collapse from exhaustion on the roads. As many as 700,000 households will be disrupted in their work. Hostile armies may face each other for years, fighting for victory that is decided in a single day. To remain ignorant of the enemy's condition simply because you grudge the cost of paying spies is the height of foolishness. Such a person is no leader of men, no help to his ruler, and no master of victory. What enables the wise ruler and good general to strike, conquer, and achieve things beyond ordinary men is foreknowledge. This foreknowledge cannot come from spirits or gods. It cannot be gained from experience alone or figured out by calculation. Knowledge of the enemy's situation can only be obtained from other people. Hence the use of spies, of which there are 5 types: local spies, inside spies, converted spies, expendable spies, and surviving spies. When all 5 types of spies are at work and no one can discover how they operate, this is called the divine network. It is a ruler's most precious resource. Local spies are recruited from the enemy's own population. Inside spies are enemy officials we have turned to our service. Converted spies are enemy spies we have captured and turned to work for us. Expendable spies are our own agents whom we deliberately give false information, knowing they will be captured and report it to the enemy. Surviving spies are those who return with information from the enemy camp. No one in the army should be closer to the commander than his spies. No one should be more generously rewarded. No business requires greater secrecy. Spies cannot be used effectively without wisdom and insight. They cannot be managed properly without kindness and honesty. Without careful judgment, you cannot determine the truth of their reports. Be subtle, be subtle. Use your spies for every kind of task. If a spy reveals a secret before the time is right, both he and the person he told must be put to death. Whether your goal is to destroy an army, capture a city, or assassinate a leader, you must first learn the names of the commander's attendants, aides, guards, and gatekeepers. Your spies must find out who these people are. Enemy spies who come to spy on us must be found, bribed generously, and treated well. In this way, they become converted spies working for us. Through the converted spy, we can recruit local spies and inside spies. Through his information, we can feed false reports to expendable spies. Through his knowledge, we can deploy surviving spies at the right time. The goal of all 5 types of espionage is knowledge of the enemy, and this knowledge begins with the converted spy. Therefore, the converted spy must be treated with the greatest generosity. In ancient times, the rise of one dynasty came through a minister who had served the previous dynasty. The rise of another dynasty came through an advisor who had served under its predecessor. Therefore, only the enlightened ruler and wise general will use their most intelligent officers for espionage, and through this achieve great results. Spies are essential in warfare, for on them depends the army's ability to move.